Will a bitch ever learn? Probably fucking not. Haven't you people ever heard of recording a goddamn intro? No! Hi, hey, I'm Morgan, and today is going to be the start of a new recurring series on my channel called STITCHIN Bitch. I have been wanting to do like a long form, chill, chatty series on my channel for quite some time. I wanted to have something that people could come to and watch while they're doing tasks or while they're doing DIY projects or anything like that, because I love to listen to like chatty YouTube videos while I cross stitch. I love the phrase "Stitchin' Bitch." There's a coffee shop here in Columbus that has like craft nights and they call them Stitchin' Bitch nights. And Sarah from String Bean Books also has a series on her channel called Stitchin' Bitch where she crochets and talks about books. So I figured I would bring three of my favorite things, like chit-chatty videos, booktube, and cross-stitching, and I am just gonna talk while I work on this project. And I figured while I'm doing that, I might as well talk to you guys about some stuff. I think today I'm gonna talk about my least favorite books of the year, my most like disappointing reads of the year. I was looking at Goodreads and I was trying to find any book that I rated like 3 stars and under. Obviously, like 3 stars isn't bad. I'm not talking about like the shittiest books I've ever read in my life. I'm just more so saying like these are books that fell kind of flat for me. I'm currently doing these little stitches, in case anyone's wondering. So I'm doing all the orange bits right now. Oh god, dear god. When I cross stitch, I love to go by color. Like if it's something with lettering, I always do the lettering first and then I go by color. Grab a tea, grab a coffee. I have my coffee down here. Grab some snacks. Grab yourself, cause you're a snack. And just let's get ready to chill out and stitch. And if you guys want to bitch in the comments about your least favorite books of the year, please do. This is a mixture of my most disappointing reads and my least favorites. So the first book that comes to mind for sure in terms of not like the worst book I've ever read, but a disappointing book. Sorry, I'm being interrupted by how big that dude's dick was. So in terms of being just disappointed by a book and not like mad at a book, I would definitely have to say that What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera was a huge letdown, considering that last year that was one of my most anticipated releases, and I read it at the beginning of this year. I just didn't get around to reading it last year, and I ended up giving it either 3 or 3.5 stars. I genuinely cannot remember for the life of me what I rated that book. But there was so much to it that just bothered me. I just feel so lukewarm about Becky Albertalli's writing. I know that she is just, you know, a classic YA name in every home at this point. But I think that she struck gold with Seven versus the Homo sapiens agenda, and then she's just kind of fell flat ever since. This isn't the only time I felt this way about Becky's writing. I felt this way about Leah on the Offbeat as well, because like I don't like too many like pop culture references in my novels. I feel like it tends to date them way faster than anything else, and I think that there was a lot of that. There was a lot of pop culture references, and I'm used to that, like with, you know, making household name references like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, or things that are widely known and accepted. Like if I see a Star Wars reference in a book, I'm not going to be mad at that, because Star Wars is common enough that even if people don't like Star Wars, they can somewhat piece the reference together. But when you're reading a book and they make like a Six of Crows reference, when not everyone in the demographic reading that book is going to have also read Six of Crows, it kind of alienates the audience, and also just, it's weird. It's weird to me. I think she made a Six of Crows reference in Leah on the Offbeat, but I know she made some references in What If It's Us as well that were just kind of like, okay. There was a lot of Broadway talk because it takes place in New York in the summer, and like that was fun. But my problem with this book, in my opinion, as a bisexual woman, so I can't really speak much into this, is that she wrote Arthur to be like a caricature of a gay teenage boy, and that was annoying. Like, she gave him every stereotype that you would have seen in like a skit about a gay character in like 2004. Just like very flamboyant, very over the top, very dramatic, jumping to the worst conclusion at every second. And it just felt like, it didn't feel like that was his character. It felt like he was that way because he was gay. And that is just my interpretation. Obviously, I'm not saying that's what it is. That's just how I felt while I was reading it, and I didn't like that at all. And I also didn't like how he wasn't really challenged for his racism. He says some pretty racist things towards Ben as a character, and that made me uncomfortable as well, and he wasn't really challenged for it, and that he kind of, it felt like he was gaslighting Ben into like feeling bad for feeling that way when he said something racist, and was like challenged but didn't acknowledge that it was ever like a fucked up thing to do. And so all in all, I didn't like it. The only parts that made it like remotely redeemable for me was Adam Silvera's chapters. So Ben as a character, I really enjoyed him. He was very well-rounded. He had a great family, and he came from struggle, and I'm just so sick of reading characters by Becky Albertalli that are so affluent and don't acknowledge that they have privilege in that context. Like, I know Leah was supposed to be someone who struggled with finances and who didn't come from an affluent background, but it still felt like forced writing on Becky's behalf, and it was just like, oh, okay. So yeah, that was not the worst book I read this year, but it was definitely a disappointment. The next book that I felt let down by was the final book in the Lara Jean trilogy, so Always and Forever Lara Jean. I didn't hate it. I still really liked it. It's just, like, I found it forgettable. Like, I don't remember a goddamn thing that happened in it. As the series continued, I just feel like what made it fun and what made me interested in the first book was all lost. Like, obviously the fake dating is gone, so then it's just Peter and Laura real dating. And like, if I want to read a book about people real dating, I would read anything other than a book with a fake dating trope. And then the letters thing, like, that was solved so early in the first book, and then it was like, it felt forced bringing it up later. And I don't know. I just feel like this could have been stronger as a standalone or as a duology. I don't think it needed to be made into a trilogy. I can't get this Stitch. Hello? So yeah, those are books that I just like, I didn't hate them, but I was let down by them. And I had such high expectation going into What If It's Us and Always and Forever LJ that I just was upset that they didn't go the way that I was hoping in terms of like my enjoyment. Not that they were bad. I still found redeemable things in them. I love Peter. Book Peter, at least. I don't know. John Ambrose McLaren is also really sweet. Well, that boy was wronged. Also, I hate being the person that does a disclaimer because I don't think it needs to be said that we're all allowed to have different opinions of books and still be friends. Like, I think that's great. And I love discussing books that my friends love that I dislike, and I love having a dialogue and seeing it from their perspective, because I like, while I did not find the most enjoyment or merit reading these books, and while I personally didn't like it, I totally can see where my friends like the books that they like. And if you like any of these books, like, strongly, and they were 5-star reads for you, and they mean the entire world to you, that's so dope, and I want to talk about it. So that's a thing. I'm more so disclaiming just because I know that one person will take it personally and get butthurt, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone's butt today. I'm just trying to stitch and bitch, okay? I was going to have this first Stitch and Bitch video be all about J.K. Rowling being a TERF, but I feel like that would have been too heavy, so next time. But let it be known I'm not happy about it. The next book that I could talk about for a bit is one that I just recently finished, and it wasn't disappointing in the sense that, like, I had high expectations and was wrong. It's the fact that I had low expectations and I was right. And it was just, that was sad. And that was City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. And I really do not know what to say that can even fully articulate how I feel about this damn book. Granted, I'm not trying to be, like, super articulate in this video. I'm just trying to do a cross-stitch project and talk to you. But, hold on, my needle fell out. Okay. So, City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. I don't find incest sexy. And shocker. And I don't like reading a book where the main driving force of the plot is 2 characters that are very obviously on page horny for each other, thinking that they're siblings. My needle is in my mouth. So I don't appreciate a book about 2 people that for the entirety of the book think that they're siblings. And the whole, like, conflict of the book is them still being horny for each other, knowing full damn well that they're siblings. So in the first book, spoilers for the first 2 books of the Mortal Instruments, you find out that Clary and Jace are both the child of the villain, the antagonist, and that they've been making out and, like, having sexual tension and looking at each other for a whole book when, plot twist, they're siblings. Very Luke and Leia. Like, they don't know in the first book that they're quote-unquote siblings, and so, like, it's fine. But then at the end of the book, they find out that they're siblings, and they still, like, look at each other longingly and have desire and, like, wanna fuck, and they're siblings. And I'm sure, I don't know because I'm not going to continue on with the series, I don't know if that is dispelled in, like, the final book or whatever, and if that carries on for all, like, 5,000 of this fucking series, but I don't care, because in this book, they are still led to believe that they're siblings, and are still led to believe that they're related, and they still look at each other and are super horny. And I don't think it's cute. I don't think it's a good romance. It's not something that I ship. I also think all these characters are bland, and the plot feels so muddled together and so rushed. And I just think that the plot is a lot to be desired, and by that I mean there is nothing desirable about the plot to me. So yeah, that is, I was so disappointed because I was hoping it would get better, and I was hoping, like, oh, they know they're siblings, so they're not going to be, like, horny. And spoiler alert, I was wrong. So that was frustrating and upsetting for sure. I wanted nothing more than to be proven wrong, because I love to be proven wrong when I go into a book with low expectations, you know? So yeah, that was something that I was pretty bummed about. I read this, like, really stupid fucking self-help book at the beginning of the year. It was called, like, Unfuck Yourself, and I listened to it on audiobook because I had a fuck ton of Audible credits, because I do this thing where I have a book subscription or something, and I forget that I have it, and so I just, like, rack up credits. I did the same thing with Book of the Month, and then I cancel it. And so I read it, I hated it, I returned it and got another Audible credit. I find self-help books to be very hit or miss, because it's either really emotionally manipulative and makes you feel bad for feeling anything other than, like, bright, shiny, and happy all the time, or it empowers you to be a shitty person. Because some self-help books are like, get rid of what doesn't serve you, even if it's all of your friends and all of your family and everything ever. And I don't think that's healthy. I think that effectively communicating to someone that something that they did hurt you and having an open dialogue about it, and then taking how they react and how that discussion goes to move forward is healthier than dropping everybody because they looked at you weird at like a Christmas party or something, you know? Like, I think most things can be communicated and resolved, and it all depends on how that person reacts for sure, but you're also in control of how someone is interpreting you. And like, interpretation goes both ways. It's how you interpret somebody, how you interpret yourself, how they interpret themselves, and how they interpret you, in my opinion. I'm not a professional. I'm not like in an MLM scheme or something. I was in a cult, but like, you know, I was in a cult that was pretty heavily based in dropping things that don't serve you, even if it's cutting everybody out of your life that doesn't want to join the cult. And like saving yourself and being selfish. And I think that that is an aspect of self-help books that gets this praise of like, oh my god, it taught me how to put myself first. And like, yes, obviously prioritize yourself. Put yourself first always. It's hard to prioritize ourselves, and we're in a society that says that taking care of yourself in any way is selfish. And I think that self-help books like take this and they tell you to prioritize yourself, but in unhealthy ways. I think that self-priority is super important, but I think self-help books take that and run with it in a way that can bode not the best results for people, or unhealthy results, because obviously self-help books aren't going to impact everyone the same way. Duh. So the self-help book that I read this year, it was called Unfuck Yourself, and it was all about like mindset changing and strategizing. And it was all about just like how everything is a result of your mindset. And it's like, no, some things are literally circumstantial. And like, my gripe with self-help books forever is that they tend to not discuss mental illness at all. But most people find mental illness to be like not real, which is another thing that I could discuss about in another Stitch and Bitch video, is how we talk about self-care and we talk about self-love and changing our mindsets and how everything is a reflection of our mindset. But at the end of the day, like, some people have mental illness and can't just change their mindset overnight. And I was in a cult that emotionally groomed people into believing that mental illness was a choice and that you could just choose to not have mental illness, and how it was a personality defect that you were choosing for yourself. So, like, I was told multiple times that I could just stop being obsessive compulsive if I wanted to. And that's not how that works. Ever. But I was also told that I had a victim complex because I was sexually assaulted, so. Anyway, this self-help book kind of reoriented everything that was said to me in that context. So it was all about like how you're in control of your mindset, and how if you don't want your feelings to get hurt, just don't let things hurt your feelings. And it's like, well, okay, like that's way easier said than like fucking done. But alright. And I don't like self-help books like that. This was a tangent. Welcome to Stitchin', bitch. You know what? There was one more book that I loathed. I think my least favorite book of the year was that self-help book, because of what it just stood for, and I just hated it. But there is one more book that I absolutely despised. And I ranted about it earlier this year in one of my wrap-ups. And it was called The Wondering Years: how pop culture changed my life, something, something, whatever bullshit. I listened to this one on audiobook as well, and I fucking hated it. So I love podcasts about pop culture. Where am I starting? Okay, I see. Never mind. I lost myself, but then I found myself. Story time. Not clickbait. Emotional. I love podcasts about pop culture, and I love just talking about pop culture in general. I love talking about like television shows from the 90s, 2000s, whatever. The Wonder Years is a phenomenal show and a phenomenal band. I really enjoy discussions about people being shaped by pop culture and what certain things meant to them. And I was hoping that's what this book was, because this guy also talks about pop culture on a podcast. I don't remember what the podcast is called, or rather what the author's name was, because I just like, it's like Knox something. It started a little bit about pop culture, and he talks about it like for literally like probably the equivalent to a page, maybe half a page. And then he started using it as a way to preach and start like ministering in this book. And if you're going to discuss your faith in a book, I believe that that should be something that you put in the synopsis of your book, like, and let it be known that the book is heavily about faith and not about, you know, pop culture, which is what I went into this book thinking it was going to be about. And instead, I was met with Jesus. A lot of it, which is fine if I had known that that was what I was getting into. But it wasn't. I had to talk a lot about, you know, masturbation, how that was such a bad thing. And also, just like certain topics were really weird and made me super uncomfortable. Like the part where he, spoiler, equates the fact that dinosaurs aren't discussed in the Bible to his father having cancer. And I thought that was pretty fucked up if you ask me, but you know, I don't think anyone asked me. But in case you were wondering, I find that very fucked up. And what the hell is this? Oh, speaking of fucked up, I sure did it. So, I didn't like how the book snuck in like discussions about faith, and realizing that that was the motive of the book, was to be like preachy. And it just had a different intention in the synopsis and the title and the cover. And then once you actually got into the meat of the book, it was just like talking about God and religion and faith and stuff. And I would have rather had that been directly I would have rather had that intention and motive directly stated in the synopsis and everywhere else, as opposed to snuck in under the guise of it being about pop culture and like a memoir about his life. And it was a memoir about his life, but it was more so about God and finding his faith and everything like that, as opposed to what I thought was the actual motive, which was about being shaped by pop culture and things that meant a lot to him. And I don't know. I just felt that this book was shady in that sense, and I didn't like it at all. This is what I have so far. I started with just a couple of these little orange dudes, and now I only have 2 left. I just have to do the 2 on the bottom to mirror the 2 on the top. And then I'm going on to other colors. Well, I'm not done with all the orange, but I'm done with these little dudes. I also have some like little hearts to stitch around in orange. Just like a couple. I think just one on this side and one on this side. But this is what it's looking like so far, and I'm super excited about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the inaugural episode of Stitchin' Bitch. Let me know how frequently you'd want to see these. Maybe like once a month or once every 2 months, whenever I have something that I just want to discuss at length in a long form type of video. So it'll just probably be like interspersed throughout my content, like a little surprise, a little nugget, if you will. But that is going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like my little my little nook setup. I really enjoy it. I said that last time, and then I said welcome to my nook, and then I made myself uncomfortable. But yeah, if you guys like this, let me know if you want to see more chill, laid-back, chatty videos. It's kind of my whole intention of doing these videos. And if you want to see more of my content and more of my mug, you are more than welcome to subscribe. I try to upload every Monday and Friday, but life gets in the way sometimes. And yeah, my name is Morgan. This is MorgyyReads. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and happy reading. Okay, bye!